I'm going to try something I have not tried before. We're going to go through, and I'm going to skip a whole bunch of slides here. There we go. We're going to go through and try to build 3 applications in the next hour 15 here or so. Because of that, I'm going to go ahead and skip quite a few of my slides that I would normally go through. But what we're going to go through here today is 2 factors. One is the database platform called Dataverse that kind of encompasses all the Power Platform. And then we're going to go over how we build apps on top of Dataverse. Now, once you have the Dataverse, you can build Power BI on it. You can do Power Automate, a whole stack of tools all work right there. We'll cover what Dataverse looks like in a moment. Now, on the Power App side, the brilliant thing about Power Apps, it's been out for about 5 or 6 years now. When you build a Power App, it works on any device when you build the code. So once you code once, and it's going to work on your iPhone, on your Android, on a PC, or on a Mac. It works in a web browser or in a native application. So it doesn't matter how you want to access it, it works great. And if you are going through your phone, you do not have to submit these applications to the iTunes Store and the Android Store. You simply have to, your users simply have to download the Power Apps application, sign in with their Office 365 credentials, and they'll see any applications that they have access to inside the organization. So because it uses that native application on your iPhone or Android, you get access to all the phone systems like GPS, like the pen and ink system, the camera, storage, all that stuff comes over as an add-on, including even things like mixed reality, by the way. So lots of neat stuff we can do this. Now, once you build your application, you can share this application out and just an email address. It can be shared out to people internal or external. However, if you go external, you have to pay for a license of anybody that uses your application. They also have seamless integration with the rest of the Power Platform and also Office 365 and Dynamics as well. A lot of different tools will integrate with this. Now for Power Apps, it can connect to 480 or so connectors and build applications on top of those connectors. Some of those connectors, it's kind of that freemium model. So some of the connectors are free and some of them are pay. Once you add the first pay connector, you can add as many pay connectors as you want thereafter. So we'll talk about the licensing and how it works in a moment here also. But the main thing to keep in mind is it's a WYSIWYG designer. What you see is what you get. So as you move something, 2 pixels to the right, it will look 2 pixels to the right on every platform that's out there. So really, really, really cool stuff you can do with it. Now, tying all this together, let me kind of skip a few slides here. This is my normal slides. There we go. Is the Dataverse. And that's what we're going to start with tonight, is the Dataverse. It is a behind the scenes, it's an Azure database with a data lake as well, and a number of other Azure technologies that are feeding it. But the good thing about Dataverse is you don't have to worry about what back office system it is. You don't have to worry about it's hosted in SQL Server or that's hosted in Data Lake or any of that. No worries at all. What they've done, Microsoft has done, is they've made it to where anybody can build a database. So whether you're a developer, a DBA, or a project manager or a salesperson, they've made a unifying platform. You just open a web page and you say, I want to create a table. I want to have these 4 columns, and it has tons of plumbing built into it. That plumbing will tell you things like who created the record, when was it last modified. It has things like row-level security built into it to where you can only see your own data. Or I can see my own employees' data, for example, hierarchical security. It has column security where you can protect the salary column, for example. It also has the ability to attach files to it, and it has a whole slew of other plumbing built into it. So Dataverse is basically you start on the 50-yard line versus starting on the 0-yard line. It has a whole bunch of functionality already ready for it. Now, because it is a SQL Server database behind the scenes, you can connect to it and actually see real-time data right out of Management Studio, Visual Studio, or things like Power BI if you wanted to as well. Okay. So again, I don't have we have some Q&A time at the end, of course, and if you have questions throughout this, feel free to type them in the chat window. I only have one monitor right now because I am working at home tonight, But if you have questions, if Mark sees they're in situational, then he'll interrupt me and we'll kind of ask those at that point.
Again, this is not about
unmute there, mic there. So the first step in Power Apps, I'm going to go ahead and show you in our chat window. I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick Google search and do Power Apps cheat sheet. There we go. And this link right here is going to have some good stuff for you for after the presentation. Let me go ahead and put this in the chat window real quickly. All right, I apologize for showing you a picture of yourself here. There we go. All right, so that cheat sheet you're seeing here is going to have the coding reference down below that I'll be using tonight. So all the code is called PowerFX. The PowerFX language they've announced as of this March is going to be brought into other tools. So you're going to see PowerFX inside of Power BI and Power Automate, the chatting, and all the Power Apps tools as well. So you're about to see this kind of stretch throughout the whole Power Platform. PowerFX is an open source language, and the goal is to make it where you have one word kind of coding syntax here. Like, for example, I want to filter a certain data set. And so they've made it feel a little piece like Power BI and a little piece like Excel. So your users are more comfortable with it. For licensing discussions, you'll find those licensing discussions right here. You'll find as you go up, my slides I was using a moment ago are right here. I have a playlist on YouTube right here that has about 140 or so videos that I make about once a week, new videos on Power Apps. There is a full day of this, if you're interested, a free class right here, and you can get the recordings for free there, and it's forever for free. There's no credit card, none of that kind of mess involved. But what is interesting here is this video is this one right here, this free community license here. If I click on that, again, the link is in your chat window. If I click on that link, it's going to take me to this site right here. Now, what this does, if I click on this existing user, add a dev environment, this is going to create a dev environment for me at Pragmatic Works, or you at your company. That dev environment is forever for free for you. At least about a year ago, it's been free for a long time. This allows you to create as many Power Apps as you want, all the premium features you want for free. You just cannot use those apps in production. It's the equivalent of old developer edition of the different tools that Microsoft used to make. Okay, so it gives us a whole bunch of functionalities that you can use to test and learn. Once you do that, it will take you over to make.powerapps.com, and it looks just like this. This is where you can create all your applications. And there are a number of types of apps you can create. There's 4 types of apps we can create. One of the types of apps, we'll start at the cheapest one. The cheapest one is Power Apps for Teams. Power Apps for Teams gives you the ability to create free apps. Let me go ahead and open up this and go to my Teams. And you'll see, I'll just open up this real quick Power App right here. This is a Power App inside of Teams. Now, this application, as I hop around different apps here, these apps are hosting all of their data inside of Teams. So inside of each of my team sites, I can have up to 2 gigs of Dataverse space where I can store up to 1 million rows in a given table for free. So chances are you got a lot of space already out there for free. Now, that's the first one. That is an app inside of Teams. And it looks like this. It's called a Canvas app where it's pixel perfect. And I can click on these buttons here and give Devin some love here, give him 200 points for helping a classmate, and so on. So you can see that this is kind of a simple application to gamify a classroom. This Canvas application, by Canvas, what I mean is it's like oil painting, right? You can move things around. It perfectly is going to look like this home button being moved 2 pixels to the right. All right, so Dataverse for Teams is included in your Office 365 subscription. It's already free. Power Apps, on the other hand, may require a license cost. And if I hit the gearbox and go to plans, we can see what kind of licensing plans I have today. The license I just showed you how to get is the community license. They're saying it expires now. That wasn't the case a year ago, so they must be changing the rules now. But if I look at my licenses, the ones you might likely have is Power Apps for Office 365. That's the freemium model behind Power Apps. With the Power Apps for Office 365, you can create unlimited applications inside of make.power apps, but you cannot use premium connectors with that. You can use premium connectors, but you can't actually publish the app. You can develop with them, but the minute I want to share this app with you, it will not let me do that until I license you as a user, as if I use a premium connection. So the question I always get asked then, well, what in the heck is a premium connection? To find that out, you can go over to Data on the left bar and go to Connections. And when I go to create a new connection, you'll see some of these have the word premium next to them. And of course, the one that you really don't want to be premium, SQL Server, is a premium connection. So there's hundreds of them that are not premium, but that one's an important one to be premium, unfortunately. So a lot of people wind up using SharePoint as a data source to go use it to do it Office 365, or they might use things like the Teams version of it instead. So at that point, you have an option. If I really want to use SQL Server, my options are to pay for a license by app, by user, by month, or I pay for you as a user by month, and then you can create unlimited applications. Microsoft is going through a pricing adjustment right now, this starting in a week, literally 7 days from now, and they are halving the price here soon. So it's what used to be $10 is now going to be $5. So the pricing is really becoming more affordable at this point. Okay, so that's all the licensing pieces I'll cover today, but there was an explainer video on that cheat sheet that I put in the chat window for you guys. So that will show you more information about the licensing in case you care. Now, once you install Power Apps, once you go to Power Apps, you'll see there's something called environments. And if you're a Power BI person, this is a little bit analogous, a little close to what a workspace is like in Power BI. These environments that I'm showing you right now are like a server that Microsoft is hosting for all of my apps, my users, my chatbots, my flows, all that stuff gets wrapped into an environment. Think of it like a dev, QA, and prod server. By default, every company will have an environment. Now, mine happens to be called personal productivity, but chances are in your company, if you were to go to make.powerapps.com, it would have your company name, and in parentheses, it would say the word default. I typically change all of our environments, the companies that I talk to personal productivity, because that main default environment, its main goal is all about personal productivity. It's about you building an app for you and your buddy, at the company, or you and your small team. It is not for enterprise applications because that environment can be seen by everybody in your company. So if you want to have proper application lifecycle management where you have promotions from dev to QA to prod, you're going to want to create 3 new environments, dev, QA, and prod. And then you can promote the apps and all the stuff between those environments. All right, so speaking of promotion of apps, the way we typically start a Dataverse project is under solutions on the left side. Now, what we're doing tonight, you can actually try later. Don't do it right now with me, but try the recordings later. Go over to the Design Mind website, watch the recordings. You can actually play along with me and pause me because I do speak fast. So you're going to want to pause me frequently and kind of build this with me. Okay, so first step I'm going to do, I'm going to go to solutions. And I created a solution here called Bay Area Solution. Think of a solution like a Visual Studio project, or it's a way of creating an installer where I can build this solution out. I can email you one zip file, and everything you need to make this work is part of that zip file. So all you would have to do is when you got my zip file, hit the import button up top, point to my zip file, and it's going to install all the tables, all the apps, all the Power Automate flows, all the security roles, all that stuff gets wrapped into it. They're adding more into solutions also, so the entire Power Platform will be part of a solution down the road also if you wanted it to be. So if I go over to the Bay Area solution here, I've already created one table just because I wanted to make sure we can get through our agenda. So ignore that one table for the time being. It's called classes. And the application we're going to be building tonight, I'm going to show you 3 ways of building the same application. You've seen a Power App in Teams. We're going to build the other 3 types of applications and I'll show you what those look like as we go through those. Those are a Canvas app, a Portals application, and a model-driven application. They're all Power Apps, but they're different types of use cases for each of those. But I'm going to start, though, by building my database first. Now, I could point to SQL Server or SharePoint or whatever. I'm choosing to use Dataverse for some reasons I'll mention in just a moment here. But this example we're using is going to be to build a class registration system. What classes do I have you registered for, and provide you a way of registering for that class. So it's going to be a really simple application. We're not going to add a lot of fields here in this database, but I just want to kind of show you the basics here. So I'm going to hit New and go to Table to create my new table inside the solution. So when I create a new table, there we go, on the right side. Again, the goal of this Dataverse is to make it where anybody can create a database, where you don't have to be a full DBA to do this anymore, a database developer. So in my case, I'm going to create this one called Class Registrations. There we go. Oh, did I spell that right? Registration, excuse me. And you'll notice as I do this, I have my registration, I have the plural version of it, and I have this technical version of it right here. If you were to open up Power BI and point to my Dataverse environment, you would connect to LWTN underscore and that table name right here. That LWTN is something called a publisher, and we won't have time to talk about tonight, but basically it's my software company, you know, in other words here. It's a publisher that's creating this solution. All right, after that, I'm going to go ahead and for registration, I'm going to call this registration number. Okay, now the registration number you're seeing here, this primary name column that you're seeing down below here, what this is it's how you and I will communicate. If you are a student calling me about your registration, you're going to give me a number of some sort saying, hey, I'm calling about registration number 555. And that will be the number that you and I will communicate on. It is not exactly a primary key, but from an app perspective, it's how you and I will communicate. It's our friendly number that we will communicate back and forth, or friendly name if you wanted to as well. So in our case, though, I'm going to go ahead and just keep it registration number, and I'm going to make that an auto number, an identity column in a moment also. Now, down below where it says enable attachments with one checkbox, I can now store attachments for this, like your invoice, your receipt, any emails that I've had from you in this file as well. Additionally, if I go to more settings, there's lots more we can do in this. So one of the things we can do is I can turn on activities where you and I are conversing about your registration. I can attach appointments I may have had with you, tasks. I can attach emails and phone calls and appointments. All that extra metadata about your registration can be attached to this record. Once I turn it on, I cannot turn it off. So it's a one-way kind of street here. There's lots more inside of this. There's also things like full auditing turned on, where I can track, I've turned off right now, but I can turn on auditing on a given record. So I can track, hey, what was your salary before the change? And what was your salary after the change? Who changed that record? When was it done? So all of that can be done in Dataverse with just a few clicks. Now I'm going to hit the create button. It's going to tell me that, hey, once you turn it on, you cannot turn it off for these two features. I'll hit OK. And it's provisioning a table now in that Azure database that we don't really have to care about seeing. Okay, this takes about 30 seconds. And once it's done, you'll see a whole bunch of columns that are here automatically. The only column that I created was class registration number. Everything else you're about to see here are going to be custom column or these standard columns that it comes as part of the plumbing. Now, I don't have to wait for it. I can go ahead and start adding more columns here if I wanted to, but I'm hoping in the next 5 seconds it'll be done. All right, there it is. Well, that was close. All right, so here we go. So as I zoom in a little closer here, there's a few things you're going to see here. First of all, a lot of plumbing, right? Look at all these columns here. That's all plumbing that comes with Dataverse. One of the columns here, this class registration. If your table name and your column name match, class registration, that is your true primary key for this table. You'll see it's a unique identifier. So it represents a unique identifier for a given record. That's what the system is going to use to represent a unique record. But there's my registration number down here. And if I click on it, I can turn it into an auto number with one click. There we go. So you'll see it's going to start at 1,000 and work its way up by 1 each time. We can also put things like prefixes on it, like R, and it would have R-1000 if you wanted to. So I'll keep it on there for the time being and hit done. All right, I'm just going to create about 3 or 4 columns here, and we're going to call it a day and start to build our actual solution on this next. So our first column I'm going to add is, how about the cost of your registration? For the cost column, look at the data types we have here. There's a slew of data types that are already available here. These upper ones here are for doing like automatic data verification of an email address, of a phone number, and those kind of things. Of course, you imagine the phone, what the whole numbers are, and the date ones also. But there is one here called currency. If I select currency and I hit done, you'll see I've got this new column here called cost. Now watch that column when I save the table now. I'm going to save it. And when I save it, that cost column is going to become 2 columns, cost base and cost. There's cost base and costs. I also get a whole bunch of other columns like exchange rate and currency and all these. So Dataverse out of the box has the plumbing built into it for currency localization. So if you're doing business in the UK, they might see the data in sterling. You'll see it in dollars. Somebody else might see it in pesos, and so on and so on. So if you use this column called cost and not cost base, you always see the currency localized if you were to actually work on the plumbing and get the plumbing working there. All right, so that's the currency column. I'll create one more here. I'll call 2 more here. I'll call this customer. For this one, who actually registered for the class? Actually, I'll call it student, excuse me. Let's keep it simple here. For this one, I'm going to make it a lookup column. A lookup column is a way of creating referential integrity or joining 2 tables together. So when I say lookup, it's going to ask me which table do I want to look up against. I want to look up against the class table. Oh, sorry, the student table. So there is no student table, but I do have one called contact. And by selecting contact, this is going to let me look up against the people. Okay, contacts store people and accounts store companies. Those are 2 built-in tables to Dataverse that have all that built into it. So when I select you as a contact, I'm going to get all of your metadata over with it. Your phone number, your address, your email address, your children's names, or whatever else I may be storing about that use a contact. So I'm basically creating a link between this table and now the contact table. One more is going to be the class that you want to register for. Okay, so I'll go ahead and make that also a lookup as well. Where to go? There's my lookup right. Oh, I am looking right at it. There it is. Look up, and this will point to the class table, which you saw that I already created ahead of time. There we go. And then I'll create one more just for giggles, and I'll call this one registration status. Now this one I want to be a drop-down box. Either you've been approved to join the class or you've been rejected to join the class. To do that kind of option, I'll make it a choice column. Choice allows you to have a single selection, and choices is a multi-select. So for example, you might have a COVID status. I'm all clear, or I have symptoms. The choices would be the symptoms that you have, and so, you have fever, you have cough, and so on and so on. It'd be check boxes. I want to do choice in my case, and I want to hit the drop-down box. It'll say, well, which of these choices do you want to use of pre-built stuff? Now, I can also, when I add this new choice here, I can go ahead and piggyback an existing one, or I can create my own. So for example, I have this application status one. If I select it, we can see the choices they've already done here are pending, rejected, and approved. Already have everything I need here. But I could have created another one. But once you create a choice column, you can use it over and over and over again. And these choices become packaged up into your solution. So I'll make my default value of this pending, and then I'll hit done. So that's enough creating columns for the time being. You see the ones that are bolded right now are ones that have not been saved. So when I hit Save Table, it's going to push those to Azure. And now the table's been saved. Our next step, how are we doing questions, Mark? We all good? Okay.
Yes, no questions have been posted yet.
All right, no problem. All right, so if we go to views, so now that we've got our table created, when we create a Dataverse table, our system, the difference between doing something in Dataverse and doing it in SQL Server is all the app logic is going to be in the Dataverse tables. So our views are a way of seeing data, our forms are a way of entering data. Once I create these views and forms, any application I pop on top of that will honor those views and forms. So this is how we can create 3 apps in an hour. Okay, so if I go to views and I say active class registrations, I'm essentially creating a view that I can use to see all my registrations. I'm going to go ahead and this is exactly what my users are going to see. So I'm going to change this filter to only show me the stuff that I created, and I'll just go click, click, and click, click, and I have my view ready to go. This is how I want to see the data for my users. I mean, a list of all the students and their registrations, their status. I can move things around. I can do filters. I can do filters and sorting. All that can be done. But now I'll hit save and publish, and now I have a way of seeing the data. A few notes about this. If I were to change my sort order right here or change my filter, any application using this view will automatically reflect that change also as soon as I hit that publish button right there. Okay, so publishing makes it live.
And Brian, Cindy is asking, is there a limit of number of lookup counts?
No, there's no limit at all. There's no limit on number of rows, and there's no limit. There's probably a practical limit, but I haven't found one. I have tables that have dozens of lookup columns sometimes, and you can do that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Probably a limit there, but I have never found it, Cindy. Good question. Under forms, this is how my users are going to enter the data. But you'll notice a few more things up here. Notice you have business rules in here. You have your relationships in here between tables. You've got dashboards and charts. All of this is living inside of your database. Okay, so that's what makes Dataverse so powerful. Is I build it once, and then if I create 10 applications on top of this, they all can share all the work I've done here one time. So for forms, I'm looking for the main form. See the word main right here? That's what I'm looking for. This is a system generated form, and I'm going to go ahead and select it. And when I open it up, I'll go to my ABC on the left side right here. I'll select it. And again, I'm going to go to my custom fields, so I only see the fields I care about. And I'll go click, click, and click, click. All right, again, these are a way of my users can add the data. Let me zoom in a little bit closer so you guys can see this. There we go. And this is how my users will enter new registrations. Now, I know registration number is an auto number, so I don't want my users to feel like they have to enter that data. So I'm going to make this one a read-only column on the right side. There's lots more we can do in this, and I will show you a more complete application when we get later into this piece here. This is a very basic form here. The timeline you're seeing on the right side is for all my attachments. Now, we can also go through here and we can say, you know what, that timeline control is eating up a lot of real estate. So we could select this and actually on the right side here, alter it. We can make it 60-40, for example, or 60-40, 60-50. There we go. So now it's eating up a lot less real estate now. So you can kind of alter that if you wanted to. Everything is customizable though. And there are ways of actually making this a lot prettier. On the left side, notice you can attach things like other types of applications. You can attach Power BI reports to this. Lots of cool stuff we can do here. So I'm going to save this and publish this.
So Brian, while you're doing that, Steffi is asking, is there a way of adding options in the drop-down menus through code?
Yes, you can absolutely do that. And we'll actually show you some of those options in a little bit here also. Great question.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So I went ahead and published this. Now I'm going to do one more thing here. I'm going to go ahead and save this form do a little save as. I'm going to clone it. And I'm going to call this clone portal information form, or portal data entry, or something like that. All right. Now this form is going to be for my end users, my students that are going to be doing this. This form I'm looking at, the first form I was looking at was for my back office team. And this form, I don't want them to be able to update their registration status. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. Done. So that's all there was to basically cloning a form. I did that with the purpose of not letting my students automatically accepting their own registration. That was the goal there. All right, so I'm going to publish that one. So I have two forms now. I got the main form that you saw. And let me hit back a few times here. Here we go. So I have the main form you already saw. And now I have the portal data entry one. So if I zoom in a little closer, you'll see there's two main forms, this one and this one. This one is made for my Power Apps portal later. We'll get to in just a few moments. And this one is going to be for my back office team. Okay, so we have our Dataverse now ready to go in about 40 minutes. So now we're going to have the next 30 minutes or so to build 3 different types of apps. Our first one is going to be a model-driven application. And model-driven applications are perfect for an end user for a back office team. So I'm going to go back to my solution where we can see our stuff we already have. Okay. And I'm going to hit new app and model-driven app. When I select this, it's going to ask me what kind of interface do I want to use to build this application. Why would I want to use the old way? I'm going to use the modern way of doing things, and I'll hit create. This is a preview, so I'll just call this class registration back office, maybe. Okay, I'll hit create. Now we are now at 7:42 your time. We're going to have this first app built in about 2 minutes because all the hard work has already been done. So I guarantee you by 1:45 we're going to have the first app built. But it's all because all the hard work has been done in Dataverse. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add a new page for my application. That's going to reference a table. We can also reference a Power BI dashboard or a Dataverse dashboard. I'll hit next. I want to get the contact table, which is my students. And I also want to get the class table, I believe, and class registrations. So when I hit add, it's going to build my app. And there are my 3 different screens that I have there. Now I can also select things like contacts. And I don't call them contacts, I call them on the right side, title, I'm going to call them students instead of contacts. The table is contacts, but the name that the users are going to see is students. And when I click away from it, there it is, students. Believe it or not, the app is built. I'll hit save, I'll hit publish, and then I'll hit play. So if you've seen Dynamics before, and you're like, Brian, this looks a lot like Dynamics. That's because they took the underpinnings of Dynamics and they're not charging you the full Dynamics license, but now you can build your own apps on top of the Dynamics platform, basically. They're calling it Power Apps, model-driven apps, but it's basically Dynamics, okay? But all that plumbing comes over with it, including things like charting and dashboarding and being able to select a class and flip through the classes like boom, boom, boom. All that plumbing is already here for me. There's a list of my classes. There is a list of my registrations. I can hit the new button and I can add a new registration just by picking my class, boom, picking my cost of the class, so I'll say it's $4, and picking my student, Brian Knight. I can also add a new student here if I wanted to by hitting new contact and then just go ahead and say Marky D. All right, when I hit save close, Marky D is now part of my class. And when I save this record, it's now saved. I can now attach his invoice on the right side. I can attach a record about my phone call with Marky D. I can add a task to call Marky D later. I can also log any kind of attachments on the right side as well. You'll also see, by the way, if I go over to class registrations, I can run an immediate report here, or I can also export all this data to many different Excel spreadsheets with one click. So all that plumbing is right there for you. This is a model-driven application built on Dataverse. Okay, So this one does require a license. It requires a Power Apps license because it's using a premium connector, Dataverse, for this. But lots more we can do inside of here. We can also bring in data from Excel if we wanted to. We can use Power BI data flows to load these tables as well if we wanted to. You can also, by the way, if you had a SQL Server table over here, you can show that SQL Server table here right side by side, right there. And as I open up the table and as I delete records and edit records, it pushes those updates right back to SQL Server if I wanted to. And I'm saying SQL Server, but it works for SharePoint, Salesforce, SQL Server, whatever kind of, all the 480 connectors almost, it will use for that. Okay, that's our first app done. Now, I have a way for my back office team to come in here and actually look at the registrations and accept them, reject them. I can see this one's pending. I can accept them, approve them, reject them, whatever. I have my first app done. Now I need to go ahead and build my next app, a way for you to register for my class. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to use something called a Power App Portal. If I can find my stinking make.power apps, where'd you go? There we go.
And as you're getting started with that, Brian, Steffi does have another question. Can a machine learning model be embedded into this app?
It can absolutely embed in that app. Actually, it already is embedded. You'll notice that when I go to the record, there is the ability, I've hidden a button in my case. Oh, you know, because I'm in my developer environment, but there actually is an AI option as well available up in the top ribbon up here, where you can, in some environments, where you can go through and actually scan business cards, scan the data out of a form, all the AI pieces can absolutely be built into this as well.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. You'll also notice, by the way, is it Steffi? Is that her name?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So Steffi, you'll also notice on the left side is AI Builder, and all the applications and models can be done this way as well. So you train the model to recognize images, to recognize forms, and after you do that, it will scan the data and populate a database potentially for you, or say, is this a good customer or a bad customer, or lots of different models you can use for that. They're adding a lot of oomph into that piece. For our next show, we're going to use a Power App Portal. You can find it right here. So I had to leave my solution just for a temporary period to do this. Power App Portals allow me to create an application and expose the Dataverse to you as an end user. A matter of fact, if I open up my Power App Portal, I've already created one a moment ago. So you'll see I have it right here, Bay Area Portal. And I've done nothing with it. All I did is I hit the edit button right here, which took me over to this screen right here. All right, whoa, goodness. Let me go back to my main homepage. This is going to resemble a lot like a WordPress site, where you're basically building out a website for your users to log into. A matter of fact, in this case, if I hit Browse Website, you're going to see, guys, that the address that you can go to if you wanted to see my Power App Portal, it is exposed to everybody right now. It is bayarea.powerappsportals.com. I'll pop that in the chat window just so you have it available as well, so you can kind of see it later. All right. So what I'm going to do, though, is when I sign in, let me go back. I'm going to create a new page for class registrations. I've already actually created that page right there. I went over to New Page, and I created a blank page. And that is what we're seeing right here, class registrations. I have not done anything else to the page beyond just create the page. All right, once I created the page, though, I'm going to put a listing of data right where that square box is right here. I want to see all the registrations. To do that, I'll hit the plus button on the left side, and you'll see a whole bunch of stuff I've got, including Power BI reports, by the way. And I can go and say, show me a list of data, and pop it right inside that box right there. So I'll click on it. It's going to pop the list in here. And it's now going to ask me what kind of data do I want to show. Well, I want to show class registrations. Class registrations. And the table I want to point to is class registrations. There it is. The view I want to point to is the active class registrations, the one that you and I created moments ago. So remember, when I create a view, I see it all over the place. Then I could say, do I want to allow people to create new records from here? Do I want to allow them to view the data, edit the data, and so on and so on? So when I click in the white area, see my saved button up here? That's going to turn from saved to saving and then back to save. Then I can hit browse website. And then we're going to go through and see what this data looks like. It's going to open up the same tab you've already seen. And in a moment, I've already logged in. So I'll go ahead and log out in a second here so you can see. Let me go ahead and log out real quick so you can kind of see what that process looked like. So when I go to sign in right now, you'll see that I can use my AD credentials. I can use things like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. There's a whole bunch of providers that are out there, about 10 different providers I can use to give you access to my portal. You can also hit the register button if you wanted to register for this as well. So if you want to register, you can hit the register button, make up your information right here. I don't care. I wipe this portal about once a week here, so you can put your information if you want to in there. But I'm going to sign in with AD in my case. Now, a few things you can do once you sign in. It does have the ability, by the way, to have multiple languages. So I would be seeing English, you might be seeing Spanish. And it's all because the preferred language right here. Now, I've only installed English in my case, but you could easily install that. I'm also seeing this because I'm an administrator also, so you won't see that piece. All right, after I signed in, I'm seeing class registrations, and you'll notice the first thing you'll notice is I don't have permissions to view that data right now. So that's our next step I want to fix. Okay, I need to give you rights to the data, and then we're going to go ahead and create a way to you adding a new record. So to do that, I'm going to go over here and find my designer again. There we go. I'm going to select this grid right here, this little grid that we were seeing before. And on the right side, see what says permissions? I'm going to hit Manage Table Permissions, where I'm going to give you access to my table. To do that, I'll hit New Permission. And I'm going to say, I'll call this, what do we call this? Class Registration Permissions. Okay, I call it whatever I want here. I'll search for the class registration table. There it is. And then I need to go through and say, well, what kind of access do I want to grant you? Global access means you can see all the registrations. Contact level access means you can only see your own registrations. Account level access means that Mark and Mark, who both work at Design Minds, can both see each other's registrations. And then self, we're not going to mess with right now. That means you can see your own data for the profile. I'm going to select contact access, where you can only see your own data. And now it's saying, well, how do I get from a class registration to a contact? Remember I created that lookup column before? There is the name of my lookup column, the link there. And when I select it, what rights do I want to give you? I'm going to give you the full meal deal here. How about that? Because I like you. There we go. All right, after that, I'm going to go ahead and add a security role to this. And if you're part of my security role, you're going to inherit this security right here. I'm going to say if you're authenticated in, then you're going to inherit this security system right here. I can also create a separate security role called students, one called teachers, and so on by hitting manage roles. So when I hit save now, let's see what happens. All right, there we go. I now have my new security role. It's called class registration right there. So now if I go back to that page again, there it is, my class registration. I will hit browse website. It's going to purge the cache and reload the cache now. And in a few seconds, there we go. I'm waiting for it to reload right now. There it goes. Hopefully I'll see a record. Hopefully I won't see any records, or I might have that one record. I can't remember. All right, I have no records because I haven't created a record yet. The other guy over here has created a registration, but this record belongs to Mark ED, not to Brian Knight. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and our next stage is to create a way that I can register for this class. That's our next step on this journey here. Okay, so far so good. I know I'm going a little fast here, but I'm showing you a whole bunch of different apps so you get a nice broad spectrum of what you can do in this. And if you care about this, we have a whole bunch of YouTube videos and classes on this also. Now, our next step, I want to provide a way of entering a new registration. I'm going to do it on the same page and be lazy, but normally I would create a new page. So I'm going to hit the little plus button and I'm going to create a new 1-column section right there. And my form is going to go right here. I'll hit the plus button again and I'm going to add a new form. There we go, new form right here. Again, I would normally do this on a different page, but I'm going to be lazy right now. And I'll call this new class reg. I'll then point to class registration again. There we go. I'll then point to the form that we created just a moment ago. Remember that form we created? Portal data entry form? There it is. It's showing its ugly face. It's going to be an insert form. And what do we want to do whenever they submit? I'm going to put a successful message in there, but I can also route you somewhere as well. That's all there is to having a data entry form. So now, if I hit browse website again, let's see what this looks like now. Okay, wait a few seconds as it purge the cache. Now, I intentionally created a bug here. We'll see the bug when I hit the refresh button. All right, the bug is about to show. Come on. Internet is being really sluggish. There it is. So there we go. All right, I can see the cost, the student. I can go through and select the student. Oh, and I have loading, loading, loading. Come on. Okay, I'm going to ignore that. Oh, there it is. That's what I was waiting for. I don't have permissions to see the records, so we'll fix that in a moment. But if I go to class here, I don't have permissions to see that either. So just like we had in the other area, I need to grant you rights to see a listing of all the classes. So just like I did before, I'm going to go back to that application that was just in. And I'll select the form, and then down below where I have permissions, again, manage table permissions, and I'm going to hit new permission. This time I'm going to go ahead and give you global rights to see classes. So I'll call this class permissions. And the table is class. There it is. I'm going to give you read rights, and it's going to be to see all classes, global access. So I need to make that sure that's for authenticated users. There you are. And then I'll hit save. So after I've done this, that now gives you access to the class. There's one more thing I'd ideally should do as well, and that's done with a separate application. There's an app here called Portal Management. And at this time, I have to open up the separate app to do this one piece. This is where you go to manage your Power Apps portals. Speaking of Power Apps portals, by the way, this is licensed differently. This is not licensed by app, by user and all that. This is licensed by capacity, much like Azure is. So think of this, you pay $100 for 100,000 page views a month. And you basically pay based on the block of logins that you want, per 100 logins that you wish per day, 100 daily logins. So you could basically license it based on capacity. You could have different users coming in every day. It doesn't matter to Microsoft. You basically buy a block. So think of it basically like, $100, $300 range a month to get Microsoft to host your web server, your database, and your application. Okay, so the piece I was going to show you is you'll notice that when I go to form here, basic forms, this is where I go to manage my Power App portal. You'll notice new class registration. Everything we did in the other screen is also available here, but I get more stuff here. So for example, in our additional settings, you get things like JavaScript at the bottom here. I can attach files right there. I can go ahead and say, hey, when you hit the save button, I'm going to associate that record to you as a login. And I'm going to store your login information into the student column. So that one checkbox is going to put your credentials into the student column. So that way I know that class belongs to you as a registration. You get a whole bunch more into this. You can customize it tons. You can build maps. You can build calendar controls. You can put your own JavaScript here. Lots of stuff here. It's a little bit more advanced than what we have time for today. But if I go back again and I hit browse website again to kind of purge that cache. There we go. Browse website. Oh, I meant to go over to the stinking page again. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. All right. I'm going to go to class registrations once it opens up. Come on. It's refreshing right now. It's still, there we go. So now if I go ahead and I hit the class, we should see a list of classes. There we go, US history. I'll go ahead and register for, how about SQL Server Performance Tuning? There we go, I'll select that. The cost is gonna be $7. The student I'm gonna leave blank for the time being, and I forgot to actually uncheck the box to kill my CAPTCHA. I hate that CAPTCHA stuff. I hate telling a robot that I'm not a robot. But you can turn it off with one checkbox. When I hit the submit button, watch what happens. The registration's been added, and I now have a new record here. It's R-1001. You're also going to see it now, because I'm using Dataverse, over here. If I go back to class registration, there's R-1001 for Brian Knight for SQL Server Performance for $7. So that's our second type of application. So we built a model-driven app and a portals application in the last half an hour or so. Mark, how are we doing on Q&A? Doing okay so far?
We are. I'll raise hostage. Yep.
No problem. Thank you, Mark. So we built two apps, one for you to add, and you can play with it, by the way. If you register, you go ahead and try adding your own registration if you wish to my system. And then we'll go back later and we'll see your registration in this listing of over here. There's lots more you can do in Power Apps Portal. You can take credit cards. You can go through and you can make a wizard in this. And I'll show you what a more complete version looks like in a moment, okay? So the last kind of application I want to share with you is a Canvas app. And just a little brief tutorial on how we can do this. So again, I'm going to go back to my solution. There's my Bay Area solution. I'm going to create a new app and Canvas app. And then we can say, is it a tablet form factor or a phone form factor? It's going to work on both, but it's going to specialize itself as a tablet form factor for the time being. And I'll just call this class registration, reg system. There we go. This is going to be a Canvas application. This is what most people think of when they think of Power Apps, is this system right here, where I go through and I say, yep, I want to add some data. I want to put a bar up top. I want to do a very basic application here, but just kind of show you what that looks like here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select a list, a gallery here. A gallery is one way we can show data. So when I select the down arrow right here, I'll select gallery, and I'm going to do a vertical gallery. It's then going to say, well, where do you want to point this data to? Well, I've got this table called classes that I want to see. There they are. I'll select classes. It now adds that application to adds that table to my application. And I'm going to say on the right side, all I care about are list of classes here. So I'm going to say, just show me the titles. There we go. And now I can kind of shrink it down a little bit, and you can make these look really, really pretty. This application we're building right now is going to look pretty ugly because we're not going to spend a whole lot of time cleaning it up, okay? But I just want to kind of have a whole 3-hour session about building it that's on YouTube in case you care, okay? After we do this, I want to select one of these classes, and on the right side, see a list of students in those classes. So I'm going to add another gallery right here. It'll be another vertical gallery. This time, I'm going to go class registrations. There they are. Perfect. Nice. And we'll see the 2 registrations that I already have. All right. I'm going to go ahead and also just make that title and subtitle this time so we can see a cleaner version of it. I also don't want to see, I'll keep R1000, that's fine, but I really care about the student. Now, if I want to concatenate the stuff together, you'll notice there is a coding window right here, where I can go ahead and use that PowerFX language to start building the code out. Generally speaking, most of the code you're going to write is one-liners, much like DAX, but occasionally you can get pretty crazy with it. In this case, though, I'm going to put an ampersand to kind of concatenate stuff together like that. And I'll put an ampersand again. And I'm going to say this item, which means a row, dot. Now you'll see a list of all the columns that I have access to. So if I type in student right there, I think I called it student, there it is, dot student. Now student is a column, but it also relates to a different table. So because this relates to a different table, I can hit dot again, and it will say, well, what do you want to know about the student? These are all the columns from that contact table. So I should have one now called full name. There you are. And when I select that, we can see Marky D has one, and Brian Knight has one other registration. Okay, so we're getting close to having this app relatively pieced together. Now we can do other stuff in here, of course. We can go and select this gallery, and you'll notice up top, this is pointing to class registrations. I can change it on the right side, up top, or I also can change it when a flyout came open originally. But when I select class registrations, look what happens. I have a little down arrow right here where I can see the data of what that table looks like. And inside this table, one of my columns is class. So I want to only show you the registrations for the class that you select. To do that, I'm going to use a very familiar syntax probably to a lot of you guys. It's the filter code. The filter code is very similar to what you have in some of the other programming platforms, but it basically is going to do a where clause on our data. It's going to clean up our data, filter the data to only show me the records I care about. So notice a few things here. This gallery right here in red, so on the right there, it's called Gallery 2, and it's selected right there. The gallery right here is called Gallery 1. So this one right here is called Gallery 2, right there. And the other one is called Gallery 1. Now, I would, of course, rename those normally. But for the purpose of our 5-minute demo here, I'm going to say, yes, I want to go ahead and filter down these registrations and only show me ones for a certain class. So I'm going to say class, because that's my primary key, is equal to Gallery 1 dot selected, which means whatever row you selected, dot class. That should do it. And after I do that, now as I select these guys, there's my one student registered for that one, and nobody's registered for the other classes. Okay? A few things you can note to kind of debug this. If I click on class registrations, you'll see all the registrations. If I click on the word filter, we'll see only the one registration. So we can see the impact of your code each step along the way to kind of give you a good gist of what's happening. Now, there's lots more we can do in this. You'll also see, for the person asked earlier, there's AI Builder right here as well. It's all kind of tied right here at its core. You can also build in things like mixed reality. You can have things like address verification. I can add new data with a form. We can do inputs, and notice at the very bottom here, we have address inputs. We also have under charting, you'll see Power BI tiles we can integrate into this. So Canvas apps allow you to do, a ton of information here. And I can test derive this by hitting the play button right up top. That lets me see what my users are going to see here. And this is a pretty terrible looking application right now. I recognize that. But a few things we can do to pretty this up. I can put a nice light gray fill color. I can put and then make that white, for example, and you'll start to see things start to come together here. I'll make these white right here. See how fast you can build this though? I normally reserve this upper part here for the form to enter new data, but I'm going to go ahead and just drop in a label like that. Okay, I'm going to move it all the way across, just like that. And I'll call this just class registration roster. All right, something like that. Then I'll make it centered. I'll make it bold. I'm doing basically what I do in Word all day long. I'll make this a 20 or 30 font or whatever. And then I'll also go through and make it a fill color of, let's go dark blue, and then a white. So you see how just a little bit of effort, like literally maybe a minute of effort, how much that app looks so much better now, right? So whatever effort you put into it is what you'll get out of it. So let's see if anybody was adding any data here for us. All right. So you'll notice now that if I go back here again, all right, to any of these guys here, I'll hit the refresh button. Oh, nobody's been brave enough to add a new record. That's all good. I'll go ahead and I'll add a new record here. I'm going to register for the SQL Server indexing class, whatever. My student will be me, and I'll hit save and close. So now the minute I do that, I go back to the application I already built. Where'd it go? There it is. I'll look for SQL Server indexing, which is right there. And there's my two records. Marky D and Brian Knight are both in SQL Server indexing. Okay, so you can see how fast it comes around. Also, if I go back over here again and I refresh this data, all right, let me not do that. Let me go back to class registrations. You should hopefully see it's been more than enough time to refresh. There's my second record here also, and that's for the SQL Server indexing class. So this is showing you how we can kind of tie all these pieces together. There's a whole, whole robust security model behind this. There's tons inside of here you can actually have access to. But I wanted to give you, my goal here today was to give you a quick taste of what you can do. Okay. The last application type, which we're not going to cover very long here, is the Teams application. Now you'll see inside of Teams, if you want to build one of these today, you can go to the left side where you have that little dot in Teams, that little ellipsis button. You can search for the word Power Apps. I've already got it installed, so I'll click on it. And it allows you to build applications right inside of Teams. Now you have, this is all free. You'll notice there were a ton of applications already pre-built for you down here. So lots of really nice applications already built to make you look really good as a app developer. And this is exactly the same as a Canvas app you saw a moment ago. But in here, when I go to build, you'll see all of my tables, all that stuff is right here available to me. Okay. Additionally, if I wanted to load data into this Dataverse database, I can go back to my environment, which is right, I'd say it's right here. Here we go. Make sure I save this application here. Okay. And if I go back to my Power Apps environment, I'll just go right here. All right, perfect. Let me go ahead and strike all that stuff right here and kill it. Okay. You'll notice, okay. Let me go back to the home page. Okay, go back to my environment, which is right here. A few things to note. So if I go over to here under data, there's something called data flows built on this. These are the same things as Power BI data flows. So if you ever want to load a Dataverse table, I can use these data flows right here to do just that. When I hit create, there is all my data sources available. So if you're familiar with Power BI and Power Query, look up top there. It actually even says Power Query up top. So it is the same system to load that data and transform that data. But here, you can basically select your data source, transform it, and tell it to run on a periodic basis, every day, every hour, every minute, whatever you want to do there in that case. Okay, so this is how you can load data into the Dataverse. You can also just link to your SQL Server table or SharePoint, if you will, and make a live connection to those systems. So your system of record is still there. If you want to find out how much space you have in Dataverse, you can hit the gear box right here, and you can go to Admin Center. And all this shows you, and again, I'll paste this link in there so you have the exact link of where to go to. I'm going to go to Resources and Capacity, and I'm going to paste this link in here so you can explore your own environment at your company. So let me go ahead and pop this into the chat window. Okay, this is going to show you how much space and capacity you have. So my org started with 10 gigs of space. Then we licensed a few users that gave us 12 gigs. So we have a total of 22 gigs of Dataverse capacity. We also can go to Microsoft Teams right here, and we can see, hey, I've got another 20 gigs available in Teams as well. So each team can have up to 2 gigs of Dataverse space. Most mine's a pretty small environment, only 20 gigs. Most universities, for example, have terabytes available for them. So you get lots of space for teams. Every team can have up to 2 gigs of data and 1 million records. Okay, so
Brian, Cindy is asking, is there a charge for the Canvas app to leverage Dataverse?
Yeah, so a great question. And you'll notice that when I go to connections and I go to new connection, if I were to search for Dataverse, let me get rid of that in my search box right here. This will answer your question. You'll notice the Dataverse connection is actually a premium connector. So there is a charge there for that. Any apps that you want to do that with, The default pricing, by the way, that's about to come out is $5 a user an app a month. Or you can basically make it, you can license it for unlimited apps for I think it's $20 coming up in a few weeks here, a week or two. So those are the pricing around that. That's the commercial pricing. If you're a nonprofit or an education, it's much cheaper than that also. Also, if you happen to have Dynamics, you get unlimited applications as long as you stay in the same environment right there that Dynamics is installed. So hopefully to answer your question there, Cindy. Now, if you're using Dataverse and Teams, it's free all day long. So it's just Dataverse at this environment and the web page that I'm in right now, where it has a licensing cost behind it. Great question. So additionally, by the way, there's lots more that we can do in Dataverse, but if I were to go to my Bay Area solution and I can hit the export button, I'm gonna go ahead and delete this one contact table because I don't want that to be in there. But if I remove this table, I can hit the export button out. And this basically creates a zip file. There's two ways you can do it, managed or unmanaged. This is going to create a zip file for you to install in your environment. Now, managed code means that you are not able to change my code that I sent you. That's perfect for production, right? Where I send you a production copy of the app, and I don't want you to change that production app. Unmanaged means that you can, it's wild, wild west. You can change whatever you want in my application because I, the developer, am sending you, the developer, an application for you to install. So when I hit export, in about 30 seconds or so, it's going to produce a zip file that I can then attach to this meeting, and then you can basically go to your make.powerapps and install it. And it gives you everything you need to do for this class to work for you. All right, I want to leave plenty of time for Q&A as well, but I want hopefully you got the general gist of it though. My goal was to get you through all the 4 types of applications and when does it make sense to use each. Really, it comes down on why I choose one or the other. It's really a licensing discussion. So first question is, if I want to expose this application to an outside number of people, for example, I want to be Clay County, Florida here, which is my county where I live in. And if I go to my Power Apps environment at the county, I want to expose this for all the citizens of Clay County to enter an application for COVID assistance. That example, I don't want to go and license every citizen at Clay County. So this example, again, is a really quick portal we built to take applications for COVID assistance. Now, in this case, doesn't have Facebook this time. In this case, this process we're about to show you, the closest bid for building one of these was $1.2 million and a 4-month build time. We built what you're about to see here. It's not very pretty, but we built what you're about to see here in a weekend. And it was ready to go in about 2 weeks in production. So this is more of an advanced version of this. So if I go over to here and I type in something like Bay Area and I hit next, this is a more of a wizard that where my users can go through, they can upload all their household information. I can add photo IDs of people down below where I can attach files. It has data validation built into it. So as I hit next, it's walking me through basically creating this application with a progress bar up top. Now, once I save my application, this one is called R2007, this number right here. Let me show you what they use for the back office side. On the back office side, they use this project tracking application. And this is where the fun part starts. This application lets you see where all the money is going for COVID. So I can select like the ADA doors, and I can see a hierarchy here. This is a model-driven app you saw earlier. I can also go to the rental assistance, and I can see charting built into it. I can also search for my application. There's my application right there. This is the same application you just saw in the portal. And when I select it, you'll see that it has do not Bay Area right there. So already been changed. This is called up top a business process, where I can say, all right, you cannot clear this stage in the business process until you've done certain steps. Every time I go from stage to stage, it's going to email the customer, me in this case, that my application has cleared this stage and now it's ready for the next stage. Additionally, my finance team only sees their finance records, stuff that's ready for them. So there's a special view for finance, a special view for intake, where they only see the records that they need to work on each day. So you can see here all the stuff that you have. You also have really slick business rules you can turn on, where if I were to go into approvals and I were to go in and approve this, it lights up the next stage right there. So you can do all this stuff with these different types of applications. This is a more mature version of it here. That's why I want to kind of share with you this application. Okay, so again, Power App Portal with a model-driven app. So I generally lean portals if I want to license it based on capacity. This portal right here took 20,000 applications in the first few hours. So it's all about capacity. I wanted to license that capacity, like the Super Bowl, and then I can scale it down when I'm done with it. This right here is licensed for the back office team on a per user basis. Okay, so that's kind of how the licensing works here. I could have made this as a Canvas app, but in this case, by doing it as a model-driven app, I built it in about half an hour. It was done. So you can build these out really, really rapidly. This whole solution you're seeing here, the portal and the model-driven app, was in production in less than 2 weeks. And it was not $1 million. It was quite a bit less than that. Okay. Well, I want to make sure I open it up for questions now also. We're about a time where we want to go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and ask those now. I'm going to go over to the team section here and start looking at those. Looks like no questions in the chat window.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah, go ahead. Raul, did I blow your mind?
Yes, actually.
I'm your first.
And you had me thinking, actually. So in the beverage distribution industry, a thing that's often required is a survey kind of tool. You say you're a rep at a distributor, you want to go on site and survey the site to see if they're carrying your product, if they're displaying the product, displaying on the menu, and you do a survey. So I'm thinking like you can create a Power App that has like a survey on it, take photos, maybe scan a UPC code, pre-fill in data, and things like that. But my question is, if you hook it up to a SQL server, can that, or SharePoint, can that then feed, say, a Power BI dashboard on another site?
Absolutely. This application you're seeing right here for inspection of vehicles is the same kind of option, right? So this, I'm going to inspect a fire vehicle here. This is a SQL Server database on the back end, and they have a ton of Power BI reports on the front end for this. Mm-hmm. So this case, I'm inspecting a vehicle, but I have built the same thing for another beverage company where they go on site and take pictures of the different merchandise and how is that merchandise, and they answer a whole bunch of questions, right? Yep. So they're going to go through and they'll have the merchandise section where they go through and say, all right, was everything up to spec? I need to repair this device right here, for example, and it lights it up red. The minute I do repair and I hit next, the fire chief is going to get an email that one of the vehicles needs repairing. And it also, if I hit immediate, it lights up all sorts of alarms. I'm not going to do that right now. But every time I hit next, I can take pictures of the environment. It can actually turn on AI Builder to scan what am I looking at in this picture. I'm looking at a 12 pack of Mountain Dew, for example. So you have all those kind of options as well. The cool thing at the very end here, Raul, is if I hit next, hit preview, you have all the normal, because I'm on a phone device, I have all the cool attestation where I can go ahead and sign it, hit I agree, and then now it's ready to go. You'll find right here under classes, all of our boot camps and all of our on-demand learning is right there. We have about 70 classes on demand, and all we do is training, but you'll see there's a DAX class, there's a whole bunch, about 13 different Power BI classes. Our next Power Apps one is on November 1st, in case you're curious. It's 4 days of Power Apps.